The weekend has come and gone, and we have seen that Dragon Age, the Veilguard, could not even muster a peak concurrent player count of 90,000, indicating that this game does not have breakout potential that EA CEO Andrew Wilson said it had. I wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com. You can find the link in the description below. You can also find a link to become a member and help support me in my endeavors here on YouTube at the Trent Report. So as you can see here in the chart, the game only hit a peak concurrent player count of 89,418 on Sunday evening. Did not even top 90,000. Did not get to 100,000. This game is an utter flop. It does not have breakout potential. It's not a breakout success. And that is what EA CEO Andrew Wilson said as he touted the game to investors in an earnings call just last week. He said, "I certainly think Veilguard has breakout potential. Again, 10 years ago, Dragon Age Inquisition won Game of the Year and was a very strong performer for us in the conduct of our business. This is entertainment, and so while much of our business has moved to live service, moment to moment, deliver innovation and creativity for a deeply engaged community over the course of time, this opportunity to bring in incredibly high quality creative storytelling set in an amazing world with rich characters, living out those stories, you're able to capture that moment in entertainment. Success almost certainly follows." Clearly, I don't think that they found success because they didn't do any of these things that he's saying leads to success. They did not they did not have high quality creative storytelling, and it most definitely was not set in an amazing world with rich characters, because they completely changed the world and they introduced characters that have really nothing to do with Dragon Age, contradicting lots of the lore, especially with the Kunari here and this character Tosh over here. Wilson then explained, and we see that in the context of movies, and we're seeing in the context of TV seasons, and we see in the context of video games. When we think about what we have with Veilguard right now, we have a storied studio in BioWare. That's absolutely not true anymore after disasters with Anthem, Mass Effect 3. Now, obviously, with Veilguard, we have a storied IP in Dragon Age. Clearly not anymore with Veilguard. We have a team that took extra time to make sure the world was rich and the characters were interesting and the story was compelling. It's just all of this is just the opposite of what he's saying. I think we're going into a market that has limited competition for this category of game, given some of the moves that have happened across the broader industry. Enough competition basically to ensure that your game is a flop, though. And so while and like it's not about purchasing things that are new either, right? Because people are still playing older games. That's the whole point of Grums's 2-year moratorium on AAA. Play your backlog. Don't play these new games that are infected with this woke ideology, which Dragon Age the Veilguard clearly is. And so while I think it's too early to predict the outcome, the critical reviews have been incredibly strong. That's what Ubisoft said as well, right? Didn't turn out very well for them. The team feels really energized by what they have delivered. So did the Concord team, and they shut that game down in 2 weeks. And my sense is that, yes, it has breakout capabilities. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. It does not have breakout capabilities at all. 89,418 peak concurrent players. That is worse than Space Marine 2, which came out just, I guess, not last month, but September. I guess about 2 months ago now. And it had a peak concurrent of 225,690. And that's a 60% higher peak concurrent player count than Dragon Age the Veilguard. You can look at Black Myth Wukong. It obviously was a breakout success. It hit a peak concurrent player count of 2.4 million when it released in August. Wukong had a peak concurrent player count greater than 96.2% compared to Veilguard. 96.2% greater peak concurrent than Veilguard, right? In fact, the game had a higher peak concurrent player count in the past 24 hours than Veilguard. 110,000 on Wukong compared to Dragon Age the Veilguard. So clearly, gamers are still choosing to play Black Myth Wukong over Dragon Age the Veilguard, kind of refuting that whole competition thing that Andrew Wilson was saying as well. We can continue, right? Let's look at Elden Ring. Elden Ring hit a peak concurrent player count of 953,426 when it released in February 2022. That's over 2 years ago. We're almost 3 years ago now. And that was 953,000. That's 90.6% higher than Veilguard. And then even when they released Shadow of the Erdtree earlier this year, it hit a peak concurrent of 781,261. Those are the numbers you get when you're looking at something that is a breakout success or actually has or becomes a breakout, not 89,000. We can look at Baldur's Gate 3. It hit a peak concurrent of 875,000 when it released in August 2023, 89.7% higher than Veilguard. And you can even see the 24-hour peak, 101,093 compared to Veilguard's 89,000, right? So clearly, this game is not a breakout success. We actually see breakout successes here with games like Elden Ring, like Baldur's Gate 3, like Black Myth Wukong, like Space Marine 2. They all did peak concurrent over almost 250,000. Got to go back up here and remind myself of what Space Marine 2 did. I think it was just shy of 250,000. Yeah, so it did 225, but they all did over 225. We're looking at massive success with Elden Ring, over 950,000. Baldur's Gate 3, 875. Wukong obviously was a massive, massive success, 2.4 million peak concurrent. And clearly, Dragon Age the Veilguard is nowhere near what those games did. We're seeing these games just absolutely beat it by 90% increments. I mean, even Space Marine 2 beat it by a 60% increment. I'm sure there are plenty of other comparisons you can make. I already did a video on how it just got absolutely crushed by the Monster Hunter Wilds beta that had almost 400,000 peak concurrent playing that. Obviously, that game was free, but still shows interest in that game compared to Veilguard, because even if they get half of that peak concurrent in sales, it's still like way better than Veilguard. You can even half it. It's still looking at over double what Veilguard did. And former World of Warcraft team lead Mark Kern, aka Grums, he shared his professional opinion earlier in the week, basically saying that this game is underperforming. He's when he was discussing basically the game's release day peak concurrent, which was just 70,414. And he said, here's why this is concerning and how I feel Dragon Age is already underperforming for a AAA game. It's true California isn't online yet, but people joining earlier are leaving the game, or you would see the curve stack more. It's about session time. Long-form RPGs tend to have really long session times versus, say, FPS games, but we're not seeing that here. People are logging off after a relatively short amount of time. You would expect that East Coast would still be playing as California came online, but they are not. This means session times are low, perhaps 2 to 3 hours, which for an RPG on launch day is not great. There is no cumulative effect here as East Coast players and West Coast joins them, or as East Coast plays and West Coast joins them. He says it may mean players tried it and got tired of it early, not good, but I think we're starting to see the Dragon Age bait and switch effect as the gamers look and feel, as they discover that the look and feel is very different from its predecessors, as well as the effect of all the preachy DEI that is self-evident in the game. When you have AA games with much smaller publishers doing 300,000 or so, money guys are going to ask what they are spending so much more for. If weekend numbers don't go higher, this also means that players who tried it today are not coming back to try it again over the weekend. This would be very unusual. And obviously, they did go higher, but they did not go that much higher. Again, only increasing by about 20,000 in the peak concurrent, which is still not good, especially when you compare it to games like Baldur's Gate 3, like Elden Ring, even like Space Marine 2, and then obviously with Black Myth Wukong. Remember, the Black Myth Wukong tool, they had a tool that hit 85,000. Their benchmark tool hit 85,000 peak concurrent, which Veilguard just barely beat with 89,000, showing you that this game does not have breakout potential, does not have breakout success. It is underperforming, and I think we can safely call this a flop now based on all of the evidence that we are seeing. This is not going to likely make EA and BioWare any money, likely going to have a significant loss with this game. But we'll see if they actually admit that. We'll see if they actually have a post about it. I think that we won't see any posts. I think this is a very similar case to Star Wars Outlaws, where the sales are very soft and likely add up to a loss for the company. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.